Yo, what's good, everybody? In today's video, we have 5 simple tips and tricks for you to improve your discard decks in Marvel Snap. If you implement these simple strategies, then your discard deck is gonna help you rank up fast. Recently, I've been using this deck right below me to win a lot of fights and move up in the ranks. The thing about discard decks is that I run into a lot of them, but I feel like people don't exactly know how to use them properly. So either they end up giving up on them and they don't like them, or they're kind of using them in the wrong way with the wrong mindset and playing cards out of order. There are a bunch of pool 2 cards in this deck because I honestly feel like you shouldn't really be using a discard deck with only pool 1 cards. At the end of the video, I'm going to take us into gameplay and show you exactly how I implement these strategies. My first tip, and maybe one of my most important ones, is to put America Chavez in this deck. She works in 2 different ways, and the first way, which is the most important, is that she actually thins out the deck. Because you can't draw her until turn 6, that means that you're really drawing from an 11 card pool. You're gonna see Apocalypse a lot more, you're gonna see Lady Sif, Swordmaster, and all the other main cards that you need to see in this deck to really get it going. And if you never end up drawing Apocalypse, at least you know that you can rely on America Chavez coming out and giving you 9 power on turn 6. If you don't have Apocalypse right away, you might start to get a little nervous about winning the fight because you're not able to use your discard cards to actually chop Apocalypse. Our second tip is to actually use Okoye. She's going to boost every single card in this deck, which, if you notice, consists of a lot of smaller cost cards that don't have a ton of power, except for Apocalypse and America Chavez. Even if you do have Apocalypse in your hand, Okoye is still gonna boost America Chavez no matter what, because she's gonna be sitting in your deck until turn 6. So if you run into the situation where Apocalypse is not in your hand, then Okoye is still buffing him before you ever even get a chance to discard him. Our next tip is how to implement Swarm properly into your discard decks. So when he's discarded, you're going to actually add 2 copies of Swarm for 0 cost. A lot of times when I see Swarm get turned into a 0 cost card, people immediately play both copies of him. What I would suggest is you play 1 copy or no copies of him, and you save him until the very end when you drop Apocalypse as well. By waiting to play Swarm, you're giving yourself an opportunity to either drop a ton of power on turn 6 by filling up the board with a bunch of swarms, or you're giving yourself a chance to chop that 0 cost card again and make another 2 copies. I've won entire matches just because I had 4, 5, 6 swarms all on the board at once. A lot of people just forget that you even had Swarm in your deck. Maybe they don't even understand what its power does. You can end up using Swarm on the last turn. You drop your Apocalypse, and that's all that anybody's expecting. They're trying to guess what location you're gonna put him at. Then all of a sudden you drop 2 or 3 swarms at the same time to fill up other locations. You take down a location that they didn't even have their eye on. Swarm is pretty much the second or third most important card in this actual deck. My 4th simple tip is that you don't actually have to play cards as soon as you get them or as soon as you have enough energy for them. What I mean by that is that I typically never play Blade on turn 1. Yes, he's a 1 cost card. Yes, you could play him right away. But if the other cards in my hand are Morbius, Angela, and Okoye, then I would rather just skip turn 1 because I don't want to unnecessarily discard cards that are gonna help me. I feel like I typically play him maybe around turn 5. And that's why we have Iceman and Sunspot in the deck. Those 2 cards are probably the best 1-drops in the entire game. Sunspot is gonna gain power when you don't use all your energy, and Iceman is gonna disrupt your opponent's cards. They work perfectly in tandem with this discard deck. And tip number 5 for our discard deck is that sometimes you're gonna discard the wrong card, and that's okay. The most important quality in Marvel Snap is knowing when you should retreat and when you should keep going. Sometimes you're gonna have a Wolverine, Swarm, Apocalypse, and Lady Sif in your hand. You got a 75% chance to discard one of the cards that you want discarded, and then Lady Sif gets cut in half. Just take a step back, reevaluate your strategy, think about if you can still win, and if you can't, that's okay. You still have the option to retreat. Discard decks are almost a form of gambling in this game, but the payoff is tremendous and you can stack the odds in your favor by implementing these tips. So I'm gonna take you into a couple games so that you can see exactly what I do. And like I said earlier, I'm not gonna play Blade on the first turn. He's only got a 1 in 3 chance to cut Swarm in half, and we don't want to lose Okoye or Morbius, so we're just gonna end the turn without playing any cards. The first card that we're definitely going to play is Okoye, because we don't have Apocalypse out yet and we want to boost Apocalypse and America Chavez in the deck so that we can have more power if they come into play. Another thing to note is that with this hot location Machine World, usually your discard decks work out really well because you could play your discard cards there because your opponent's not really going to want to chop up his cards and discard the ones that he wanted to keep. So now that we finally drew Apocalypse and he's got the +1 from Okoye, we're actually finally gonna go for it. We're gonna drop both Swordmaster and Blade. We have the best odds to discard one of the cards that we really want to, and Enchantress is there and we don't really care about her. So now we're gonna discard 2. That doesn't help us though. So Wolverine filled the location that we really didn't want filled. Because my opponent hasn't snapped yet, I'm gonna hang in there and see what happens until he snaps. But now we have Swarm cut in half. We got 2 0-cost Swarms. We can actually go ahead and play Machine World on Enchantress because we don't have a lot of cards that are going to be affected by Enchantress, except for Morbius, who's already dead as is. We're gonna use Iceman in Machine World because Iceman can't hurt us on the next turn. And there's America Chavez, and now because America Chavez actually has 10 power, we don't need to use Apocalypse on this turn. We can actually use America Chavez instead because she's bringing a little more power. Unfortunately, I don't know if I'm gonna win this one. It kind of just depends if he discards any cards. We're gonna bring a bunch more power to this middle section, but we have America Chavez plus the 2 Swarms that we were saving and hiding at the end. We're just trying to put ourselves in the best position to win 2 out of these 3 locations because I think I'm gonna lose the first location. So that's why we put them in the middle. Oof. It turns out the middle location didn't matter. We won anyway. He didn't get a chance to boost Morbius. And let's play one more for the video. Let's hope that we can get Apocalypse out there to absolutely destroy our opponent. Again, not using Blade on the first turn. It doesn't make any sense. We're going to throw out Iceman. And now the location added Hazmat to our deck. Hazmat does not help under any circumstances. Because we have a couple of discard cards in our hand, we're going to throw Morbius in the first location because we got to protect against Carnage or Deathlock, whatever is going to come out here. We're in a weird spot because we have a couple of discard cards, but we only have one that's going to benefit us if it gets cut, and that's Swarm. So we're going to play a little carefully, like we said in the tips. Instead of playing any cards that are going to discard, we're going to play Sunspot in the middle location and give him the +2 from holding over the energy. We're on turn 4, so we're in a weird spot. We got to start playing our discard cards. We're actually going to play both Swordmaster and Blade right here and just kind of hope that they hit Swarm or Hazmat. It doesn't really matter. We don't mind losing Angela on turn 4 at this point because we're not probably going to be able to build her up too much either. Lady Sif would be the worst loss. They got Namor going on the 3rd turn. And we hit Swarm. We hit Swarm, which was perfect. We now have 2 copies of Swarm, and then they hit Angela, and that's not a big deal because we still get the boost to Morbius, and we have Apocalypse now. We're gonna put Sif in the middle because we want to save Apocalypse for Namor. And there we go. We already got a 12 power Apocalypse. Leech is not a fun card. We want to have fun here. It's okay, Leech doesn't ruin the strategy. We're still dropping Apocalypse over here on the right. And we're gonna go ahead and beef up the middle location with a Swarm. And just win without contest. Well, anyway, we were gonna put the other Swarm next to Apocalypse and pretty much lock up the 3 locations. So those are our 5 tips and tricks to help you build better discard decks. I know a couple of them were very card specific, but I kind of think that those cards are a necessity for a discard deck. And it also helps you get to thinking about what other ways you can implement those same strategies with other cards. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. It helps out a ton, and subscribe to the channel. It really means the world to me that you guys watch this. Be sure to check out my other Marvel Snap content, and I'll catch you guys on the next video.